Bitcoin Bunker. I'm your host, Satoshi Down Under. Thanks to those that joined in on the first video for the YouTube channel, and I hope you guys stick around, share this with your family and friends, and let's document Bitcoin and dive deeper down this rabbit hole and understand how Bitcoin can be a good change, positive change for humanity and our own personal lives. So last video we discussed the gold bugs dunking on us. They had a very good year. I think Bitcoin's just going to surprise everyone in the next 12 to 24 months and quickly outperform or take back some of those gains that gold's made on us. Sitting around 90,000 right now, hasn't been doing too much. A lot of turmoil going on with our old mate Trumpy and the Venezuelan president kidnapping and a few other things, and macroeconomic conditions are looking a little bit shaky. We're kind of waiting for the money printer to turn back on, which inevitably we believe it will, because that's the fiat ponzi system. It's a debt-based ponzi scheme where they need to print more and more fiat currency into the system, and really the Bitcoin price is just a reflection of that. So every time these central banks, the Fed, decide to print money, it's a good thing for Bitcoin. So we'll wait for some more liquidity to come into the market, and I'm sure Bitcoin's going to pump. But as we say on this channel, price is the least interesting thing about Bitcoin. I think the self-sovereignty aspect of Bitcoin is far more interesting, and I just want to dive into that today a little bit. So I want to talk about something called a bearer asset. Now, a couple of things can be a bearer asset. They're just basically it means an asset that you can hold, that can't be taken from you, can't be confiscated, can't be taxed, and things that come to mind are, other than Bitcoin, are gold and silver, precious metals. So for a long time, gold bugs, silver bugs, they've been aware of the fiat money Ponzi scheme, and they know that governments and central banks just print money whenever they need it. They print it for funding foreign wars, like we've seen over the last, well, decades really, but more recent times, I guess, Russia, Ukraine. US is always printing money, sending it to Ukraine. They're sending it to Israel with the Israel-Palestine conflict. So yeah, funding wars is one of the things they're printing money for. So we know these guys are just going to print. That's what they do. And the gold bugs know that. So they've been using gold as a bearer asset that cannot be confiscated unless, of course, you give it up. And they use it as an inflation hedge, which typically it has been. But I think since Bitcoin's come around, it's becoming less of that inflation hedge. And I think Bitcoin's more the canary in the coal mine for global liquidity and more of an inflation hedge. It's outperformed gold since its inception. We looked at the gold to Bitcoin chart last episode, and if we zoom right out, we can see that basically gold is on a path to zero against Bitcoin. So even though gold might be going up in value right now, if we look at Bitcoin's inception, gold has severely underperformed Bitcoin. So while it might be a good inflation hedge, Bitcoin's certainly been the better inflation hedge, and we think better indicator of global liquidity. So it's a bearer asset anyway, in any case, which means that, you can chuck your gold bars, your silver bars in your safe, not tell anyone about it, no one knows about it, and at least you know you have a portion of your wealth somewhere where it can't be seized, can't be taxed like your real estate can, and is somewhat portable. You can take it with you. So we're pretty lucky in the Western world. where we don't flee our countries. But other countries have been through hyperinflation, Zimbabwe, Lebanon, Turkey, Venezuela, Argentina, the list goes on and on. And so you've got to imagine you live in one of these countries and overnight, in some cases, the government devalues your local currency overnight and it's worth nothing. And then you're essentially trapped. If you have gold, the gold's held its value in US dollar terms. So you could imagine you need to flee the country, you've stored up some ounces of gold, and you might be able to cross a border. You might be able to get on a plane, depending on how much gold you've got, and you can go to another country and start your new life, which a lot of refugees have done and will continue to do because we live in this ponzi scheme system, fiat currency system. But where it falls down compared to Bitcoin is it's quite cumbersome to move around, right? I don't think you're going to be able to move or jump on a plane with too many ounces of gold. You're certainly not going to be jumping on there with significant amounts of wealth, 1 kilo gold bars, if you're lucky enough to have that much money. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is secured by 12 or 24 words. It's called a seed phrase or a private key. So when you buy your Bitcoin initially, you'll buy it on a centralized exchange, and then you'll self-custody it. What's self-custody? Basically, you'll send that money, you'll set up a hardware wallet, some sort of hardware device, which I'll show you in a second, and you'll move that to your seed phrase, to your private key. And your hardware wallet, that's just basically the physical device that makes it easy to transfer your Bitcoin, interact with it, check your balance, things like that. So you can have one of these small devices, which I'll show you now. This one here is the Blockstream Jade. This thing fits in the palm of your hand. They're very easy to set up, but basically this stores your private key, or has your private key. And this is where you send your Bitcoin to. Now, your Bitcoin isn't actually in this device, any of these devices, but like I say, it's just like the interface. Your Bitcoin is actually just out in the ether, right? But what you need is the 24 words in order to unlock that address. So as long as you've got that, this device can melt, it can get lost in the ocean. It doesn't matter as long as you've got those 24 words stored in your head or stored on a metal plate or stored somewhere safe. So now back to our example of fleeing the country. If you needed to, some war-torn country experiencing hyperinflation, are you going to take your 1 kilo gold bar on the plane, which will probably get confiscated and you'll get questioned and maybe detained? Or are you going to take that same value in Bitcoin stored in your head, 24 words? I know which one I would choose, and I'm sure you guys would choose the same. But this is one of the key properties of Bitcoin that people don't understand yet. It's not just we're trying to be new money. Yes, Bitcoin is better money. It's money that can't be inflated. It's capped at 21 million coins. It's going to go up forever in value as long as there's fiat currency around. But that's not the point, right? People don't understand that they can move this value through space and time to anyone on the planet without a third party. So it's permissionless. It's a permissionless system, decentralized system. Doesn't rely on banks, doesn't rely on financial institutions, and can be taken anywhere as long as you can memorize those 12 or 24 words. So this is the real power of this thing. Now, any one of these devices we can use. Trezor's another good one I use. They're very cheap. The Safe 3 is 139 bucks Aussie, and you could store whatever you want. You could have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. You could have 20,000. You could have $1 billion stored in your private key. So tell me what happens to governments trying to put pressure on their people. You might be living in a communist country or a dictatorship like Venezuela. Governments will try and squeeze their people for everything they can, but how are they going to get your Bitcoin? So if you store your wealth in your real estate, guess what? They can turn around and increase taxes on your real estate. They can change the land codes. They can do many things to squeeze you out of your property, right? Increase the taxes to the point that it's no longer viable to have that property. You can't move that wealth. So you might have a property worth $1 million, but you can't transport that wealth anywhere. It's a very illiquid asset, as we call it. So Bitcoin, on the other hand, trades 24/7. We can sell it anytime we want. The price is always there. And all we have to do is be able to get this from our wallet onto an exchange, sell it for USD or your local currency, but generally Tether, and then withdraw it, right? Now, I believe over time, the exchanges will no longer be needed because Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer network. So at this stage, with needing to move in and out of fiat currency, obviously governments can look and go, oh, there you go, someone's moved their Bitcoin from their wallet to an exchange, converted it for dollars, now they need to get it out to their regular bank, we're going to tax them. We'll hit them with a tax event. So yeah, that's true for now. But over time, as the network grows and more people start using Bitcoin, we won't have to do that anymore, right? And there's cases in different countries in Africa where small villages have created circular economies using Bitcoin as their currency. So there's no third party involved in that. There's no bank getting fees out of these guys that are simply living, exchanging goods and services with each other and providing value for each other. And they're using Bitcoin as the currency. So the government can't get in on it and tax it to death. The banks can't squeeze everyone for fees for basically doing nothing, you know. And so I believe this is what will happen over time. And it's happening right now, just in smaller scales. So that's the real power of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin as a bearer asset, and how it's better than gold and silver. Gold and silver, great. Bit of an inflation hedge, not very portable, also not very divisible, right? So I don't need to own a whole Bitcoin. One Bitcoin's 100 million Satoshis, they call it, after the pseudonymous, I can't say that word, creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. So it can be divided into 100 million Satoshis, right? So I can send Satoshis, small amounts, cents, 5 cents, 10 cents on Bitcoin's second layer, which we'll talk about in future episodes, the Lightning Network. Try doing that with your bank. You can't. They're taking fees off every transaction, and they don't really allow micro payments, you know. So the system's already built. It's already better than the current financial system. The only reason that the current financial system continues, as archaic as it is because it's backed by governments and it's backed by the barrel of a gun, right? It's backed by the US military. That's why the US dollar is still the global reserve currency. But over time, as more and more people wake up to the con that is fiat money, fiat currency, and move to Bitcoin, that system will just die off. And you can either jump on board early, you can put the time in, take some personal responsibility and start learning it for yourself, or you can go down with the ship, as Michael Saylor said. So the choice is really yours. I just want to keep going with these episodes and give my thoughts and try and articulate some of the things that I've been trying to articulate with family and friends for a long time, of why they need to look at Bitcoin and why it's beneficial. And this is one of the reasons. The self-custody bearer asset, peer-to-peer transfer of value, to me, super important points, especially in the kind of environment that we all live in now, with governments trying to squeeze everyone, censorship at an all-time high. Why are they doing that? Well, they have to. This whole fiat ponzi scheme has to keep going. They're desperate to keep it going. And what's ultimately got to happen is they have to keep putting more control on the people, restricting them from moving to certain places, restrict them from saying certain things on the internet, because their system is dying and crumbling. And without the dollar backing it and their phony currencies backing the system, their power shrinks, right? So no government wants to lose power. I think politics basically incentivizes the psychopaths, the narcissists and the sociopaths of our society, right? They're incentivized to try and get into these positions of power. And when they're there, they're either already corrupted, or they're easily corruptible, and they no longer serve the interests of the people. So what's the weapon? Bitcoin's the weapon, right? Take self-sovereignty, take your economic time and energy back into your own hands and stop feeding their system. And you feed their system by using their currency. Till the next one, take care.